Okay, let's get started. Excuse me. Of course, as soon as I get in front of the mic. Good evening. Welcome to session number 2 of the infamous Apache Junction Citizens Leadership Institute. Tonight is a very interesting night because we swapped around so we could have the illustrious Mr. Kirch, that I will introduce you in just a little bit here, do one more presentation to this group before he decides he wants to retire from the city. I can't believe it myself, but we'll get to that in a minute. It is a development services night, so you're going to hear a lot about all the different parts of development services, including building safety, code compliance, and the like. Larry will go through it a little bit, and it's obviously been a very busy place and will become a very even busier place over the next several years. One more time, for those of you who may have forgotten, bathrooms are through that door, men's and women's. We will try to take a break somewhere in the middle or whenever you feel like it's a good time, so we'll do that. We do have, again, a few people who are watching us on YouTube, so they're taking the class remotely at this point. I am monitoring them on my laptop over there, so if they have a question and if it comes to any point where you need to do this class remotely, it's the same thing for you. If you have a question, just type it into the chat and I will relay it to the speaker. Okay. Any other questions before we get started? So usually on that first night, we try to get at least a quick welcome in from the leader of the city, and he was predisposed on that particular night, so he gets to come back tonight to give you a nice welcome. So without further ado, I introduce to you the mayor of the city of Apache Junction, Chip Wilson. There you go.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for attending and I'm going to say, wanting to learn on how city government operates and runs and is involved. It's something that it's, unique when you sit back, and I was one of them. Why does the city do this? Why does the city do this? And above all, I got a darn hole out here. Why in the heck haven't they been out here to fix it? It's been here now 3 days, and they haven't come out and fixed it. So this is an opportunity for you to learn on what the whole aspect and how the city works, and I appreciate it. On the same token, some of you may be interested to sit in some of our boards and commissions afterwards. It gives you the additional information that helps you out in understanding what your responsibilities are and what you can and of course what you can't do. And I myself have constantly learning what I can't do, so that's a very long learning process. But again, I want to say thank you for being here. Welcome, and anything that you happen to feel that you need to talk to me about. I have the old flip phone, but I do answer it, and so I don't have to do the camera. Unfortunately, we lost somebody here. I'm going to say Monday, wasn't it? That's what they said. Yeah, Monday night, who fell off Superstition Flatiron part of the Superstition, taking a selfie. So we're wanting our thoughts, our prayers with the family. But again, I don't have that problem. Thank you. And if anyone's got any questions for me, good. Thank you.
There you go. Mayor Wilson, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the mayor always has lots of meetings. When we get to into the presentations part and we do have some questions, I'm going to try to run out with the microphone, like I said, so folks who are online can hear your question. If not, I'm going to ask our speakers to repeat the question when that comes up. Okay. Larry, you ready? Here we go. This gentleman right here has more than 30 years of municipal government experience, the last 7 here in Apache Junction, but before that with the city of La Crosse, Wisconsin, where he spent more than 20 years and completely changed that city into the fabulous place it is now, much like he's done with us here in Apache Junction. But he's actually from Arizona originally, Grew up in Scottsdale and went to high school here and went to community college in Arizona before he ended up in school in Minnesota and earned master's degrees in Minnesota and in Wisconsin. And he is one of the really cool people that I've gotten to know over the last several years that I've been here with the city. And he's just taken on only the biggest project in the city's history, and he'll probably talk a little bit about that tonight, I'm sure. But we are going to miss him because he has decided that next month is going to be his last with the city. He's going to take retirement and hopefully try to do some fun things on his own. And I'm guessing he probably won't completely retire because nobody completely retires, if you can imagine that. So I will introduce to you, for the last time in the CLI world, the Director of the Development Services Department, Mr. Larry Kirch, right there.
All right. I think he oversold me. I'm pretty sure. So, welcome. This is my fifth, sixth, seventh time doing this. So I was in the class in 2015. When I got here, I wanted to learn about the city. So I'm a graduate of the CLI. I think we had to go to 12 classes back then. I don't know how many you do now. You do 9, 8? So we were slow learners, so we had to go to 12 classes. So, but it was different. We went out to the fire district. You don't do that anymore. They come in, right?
Yes.
So we went out to the regional training center, so there was a night there. So I think it has gotten a little streamlined, and I think it probably helps overall with attendance and things like that. So with me tonight is Rudy Esquivius. Rudy has been with the city for 32 years as a planner in various roles in the planning department and development services. He is the planning manager. So Rudy's going to help us out tonight. And we have Victor Martinez. He is the code compliance manager. Do not get to know Victor because you don't want to see Victor or his staff. I'm sure nobody here is going to have a code issue at all, ever. So, but you can help us. A lot of times we talk to the CLI folks and they ask us a lot of great questions about code compliance and how come my neighbor's doing this and how come my neighbor's doing that. So we'll try to answer that. Also tonight, the building and safety manager, Dave Zellner, is not here tonight. With us instead is Adrian Alegria. He is our new assistant building and safety manager. And one of the reasons for that is because of this 6,000 acre annexation, and our building permits are probably going to go, they went from about 500 or 600 after the recession to this year over 1,000. And the developers down there are talking about each about 1,000 homes a year. So we'll be doing 3,000 permits. So we'll get into more of that. So that's who's here to help, and keep it informal. We'll answer any question you have. We'll try to. So our functions that we have, we do development services has really 4 divisions, if you will. Planning and zoning. These are the committees that council likes it to have folks go through this process to maybe serve someday on the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's a lot of graduates of this program who've done that and then gone on to city council and be council members. So we meet twice a month at the Planning and Zoning Commission. We were meeting very infrequently after the recession. And even now, we've canceled the last couple meetings, but we were very busy when we were working with the developers. We have a lot of action going on. A lot of the reason maybe that we don't have Planning and Zoning Commissions is land already has zoning, so they might not need to go through a rezoning, and that's why we haven't met as a Planning Commission for a while. The Board of Adjustment and Appeals, that's the committee that if you want a variance, say you're trying to build a house and something's weird with your lot and you can't meet a setback, you go to the Board of Adjustment and try to get a variance. They also can challenge things that Rudy and I say, so someone can appeal a decision we make, which those are fun, and they get to go to that process if they want. The last one is a new commission. It's the Public Arts Commission. So about 2 or 3 years ago, the council had a long discussion about public art, and a lot of other cities, you may notice, I think they kind of looked at Oro Valley as one of them that had public art. So what our ordinance does is if it's a city project, we have to put 1% of the project into a fund for the arts. then also for commercial and multifamily. So as the Popeyes is going up, they have to pay a percentage depending on the square footage of the building, an arts fee. We just did a multifamily project that that fee is $100,000. So now we have some decent money, developer pays for it as part of the building permit process. So with the new dog park across the street here, the park department is putting in 10% of the project value, or 1% I mean, and then the developer will probably be about a $60,000 art project for there. So we just went out with a request for qualifications for artists. Those are due February 23rd. Artists will be selected, they'll go through a selection committee, we'll pick an artist, and then they'll work with the community to figure out what is an appropriate piece of art. So that's kind of an exciting program with the amount of development that's happening. We think there's 5 or 6 more multifamily projects that will probably put in the largest amount. So the Arts Commission, again, is brand new, formed by the council. They prioritize, the next project is for the roundabout. So they want to do something significant at the roundabout. And then the third priority is Silly Mountain Park. So they want to do art at those 3 areas. So, building and safety, we have a committee, the Construction Code Board of Appeals. If you want to be on a committee and you don't ever want to go to meetings, this is the committee to be on. They have never met since 78, since the city was started, or whenever our ordinance is? So this board actually has never met, but this is a board if you don't like, if you're an architect or an engineer, home builder, whatever, and you don't like the decision of the building and safety manager, you can appeal it to this board. Then revenue development, I think Fox, is he coming later?
Yes.
So I'm going to not go through this a lot, but we run 2 nonprofits here, the Friends of AJ and a Community Development Corporation. And we also do grants. We write grants. We have the department that helps other departments in the city write grants. And then Fox also does 3 of these things on the tree here, the corporate partnership. So works with folks like Republic Services. They help pay for the 4th of July event and things like that. So Fox is going to do that, so I'm not going to go too much more into that. The grant assistance, again, we have some departments that write their own grants because they kind of know their niche, and they do. Otherwise, we're there to just help proofread it before it gets sent in. But we also apply a lot to the State Department of Parks and the Arizona Department of Housing. We get some federal money through their federal block grant money, or federal what are called home dollars. We have in the past run a housing rehab program. We do about 7 homes a year when we get that money, and we haven't gotten that money this year. But we also are doing a lot of sidewalks. If you go into the neighborhood around Palo Verde, First Avenue, south of the trail, we're putting in a lot of curb gutter, sidewalks, some stormwater because that's in a designated redevelopment area. And so we've done a lot of projects, roughly $400,000 to $500,000 a year. Again, we run there are 2 nonprofits, Friends of AJ, and they really help raise funds for the police department and the Paws and Claws Center. And they also do stuff for Parks and Rec. So they do fundraisers. They're doing a golf tournament, I think, in May, he said. So that's out at Queen Valley usually. I think that's where they're doing it. But they also, if someone does and donates to the Friends, they can kind of choose where the money goes. So a lot has gone to Paws and Claws, but also help some of the youth programs through Park and Rec. And then the Community Development Corporation. So that's been fledgling for over a decade. The previous director before Fox, he kind of got it up and going again. It used to be kind of under the Friends group, and now they've split off. They're helping a lot with the Make a Difference Day every October. You see the green shirts out there, and we cleaned up an alley, didn't we, last fall? They're now helping Victor with some code cases too. So if we have elderly folks that have a code case and they can't really deal with it for whatever reason, they don't have family in town, or they're elderly, their spouse has passed away. So we are trying to help folks that the neighbors still want it cleaned up, but there's not a lot of resources. So the Community Development Corporation has built a trailer. They'll go there. Right now they're working on a project that has 10 40-yard dumpsters. 10 40-yard dumpsters, and then hauling a bunch of tires, so that's kind of a good thing. They're also in charge of the focal point, so if you want to buy a brick. So this will just, Fox will give you a refresher when he's here. So building and safety, every 3 years, it's called the International Code Council. They have new building codes, mechanical code, plumbing code, residential code, commercial code. We were on the 06 code for a long time. So most cities every 6 years, because they don't want to pay for all the books, so you don't do the 06 code, then you re-adopt the 2009 code and then 2012. We went from 06 to 2018. So we were a little bit behind. We were kind of set to do the 2015 code, and by the time you get doing the 2015 code, the 2018 codes were out. So in 2019, we adopted the 2018 series of codes. We still have a couple other codes I think are from 2015. I think the electric code is from 2015, the NEC? 2017. So there's, we also updated at that time our code, and Victor will talk a little bit about it, but we have in the property maintenance code, so we kind of at the same time we presented a package to the city council to get our building codes all up to 2018, and we updated our property maintenance code. There is an international property maintenance code, but the city has chosen not to adopt that. We have our own property maintenance code. So the building and safety division, so it's in chapter 7, and when I finish here, I was going to show you, if you're familiar, or get you familiar with the city website if you want to look for stuff. But the city code is divided into 2 books, if you will. There's volume 1, and that's kind of how city government runs and some ordinances. Volume 2 is the zoning code, the land development code. So chapter 7 is in volume 1 of the municipal code. So we adopt the building codes, we adopt this pile of International Code Council codes by reference. So we don't publish because they're available online. But what cities in the valley are trying to do is try to keep cities, architects like it if most of the cities are, say, on the 2018 code. So we were on the 26 code. We were letting people design to the new code. We weren't saying, oh, you got to go backwards and design to the 2006 code. We were saying, we'll accept the 2015 code before we ended up adopting the 2018 code. So most cities are kind of on a 6-year cycle. It'd be nice if every valley city was on 2018. Many cities are probably already on 2021, or they're thinking about it. So, so we do plan review for commercial residential. There's also a zoning review. When a house comes in, we make sure it meets the setback. So the planners do a review, then the plan reviewers do a review to make sure it meets the building code. So that's kind of the major function. We issue those 1,000 permits that I talked about. Permits, we have a list of everything that needs a permit. There are some things that are exempt. I can't answer any of those questions. It's a table. Adrian might help for that, but we go through a lot of, hey, I just took this out and I put this in, why do I need a permit? So some things you actually do need a permit. If you're switching from an electric water heater to a gas water heater, yeah, you need a permit. Gas, electric for electric, I don't know.
We don't need a permit for like.
Yeah, so that's kind of a general rule, like for like. It's not always the case, but for the most part, yeah. And then building inspections. So we've had one building inspector for a long, long time. Tracy's been here 15 years. Before the recession, we were doing 500 or 600 houses a year. We had a couple of building inspectors, and then for the last, since probably 2009, we've had one building inspector. So last year we saw this growth coming and we hired another building inspector, and right now we have, we have 3 more that are in the budget for, as we get these 3,000 permits, we've added 3 more building inspectors. Dave is really good at answering some of these things, like we run through this all the time. So as a homeowner, you can be your own contractor in Arizona. So you can be an owner builder. What we wrestle with a lot are folks who are house flippers, and they'll come in and get a permit, and then all of a sudden it's for sale. But they're supposed to pay sales tax, and so they don't. So we catch a lot of folks who say they're the owner builder, and then when we find out they've sold it or they're trying to sell it, we let folks know so they can pay their fair share. We have one gentleman right now, I think he's done 5, where he said he was the owner builder. So Victor went and just handed him a citation, I think, on the 5th one, because you can't just get away with it forever. In commercial in Arizona, you can't be an owner builder. So if you have a commercial building, you have to have a licensed contractor pull the permit. And a lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, I'm an owner builder. But we have a lot of older buildings in town here and kind of the commercial core, and there's work done. A lot of the things we wrestle with is the owner's anxious to rent out the space, so they go rent out the space. Then they open their business, and then they're forgot that they needed a business license, so we give them after-the-fact business licenses. A lot of times they will drive by and we'll see a pile of lumber out back, and we'll like put it all together. And so a lot of help can be made if the property owner themselves knew, or they probably do know, that you have to have a commercial contractor to do work on a commercial building. Because the public, if you want to fix up your own house and something bad happens, you're the contractor, it's your fault. But if you own a commercial building and people are coming in and out of your building, that's where it's a lot more serious for us. We want to make sure that the public's safe going into public spaces. So the next thing is we've gone to this online permitting system for all our planning and zoning applications, all our building permit applications, code compliance. If you have a neighbor that's not doing code compliance, you can go onto this My Government Online, you can set up an account, you can upload photos, you can submit a code case. So we're just started this last November, and we wanted to make sure we had a better online system. And I can't think it's helped us kind of grow from the 600 to 1,000, but we needed something in place when we knew we were going to be doing 3,000 building permits. So this is actually another government entity that runs this. They have about 300 customers that they do building permits for large and small cities. So you can, we can probably go out to the website and look at that, which I kind of wanted to do. Hope this isn't committing any fouls here for Matt. I think I had the city website. Did I have the city website? On one of these I did. This one I did. So if everybody's familiar with the city website, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to walk you over to, they may have shown you, here's how you want to see what's on the agenda, and you can see the videos from council meetings on this city council link here. Boards and commissions. I was going to take you to the city code real quick because I talked about it. So the city code takes you to another site, which is called American Legal Publishing. So as I said, there's two volumes, if you will. So this volume 1 has the kind of how city governments works, the mayor and the council. I mentioned that the building code is in chapter 7. This health and safety, all the code stuff, a lot of the code stuff that Victor does is in this code, chapter 9. So that's how that works. Then I'm going to go here, and then volume 2 is the zoning code. So in this, what's called the land development code, we have the zoning code, the subdivision regulations, the floodplain regulations, and we have impact fees, development fees are in this section, and then our engineering standards are kind of the main ones that we use day in, day out. So that is how you get to American Legal. The other feature I think I wanted to show you is this. You go to our community and you can go to Maps and GIS. And Maps and GIS, one of the things that the council was interested in, and so we worked with our GIS folks, is this development viewer, which scroll bar here. Public art viewer, so this is something the Art Commission we put up. We don't have a lot of public art now, but we did create a website for the Art Commission, and we have an art viewer. As we add art, we would be adding to the art viewer, so you can kind of click in there. You can look at where the flood maps are. The adopted FEMA maps are on this site. And then the development viewer. So we try to keep this as updated as we can, so if you kind of want to know what's going on in the city. These are proposals we have for pending, approved, under construction, so some things that were just approved, like this 166 unit, it's called single family rental, right at Superstition and Royal Palm. We have proposals in for an apartment project here in kind of the heart of the downtown and some more townhouses. So developers that are doing these townhouses are doing the townhouses that are just getting started at Ironwood Station. So things like Villas on Superstition is there. Down here on Meridian and Southern, we have that project. So this is something you can kind of look at. I just wanted to let you know it's here, that you can kind of track and see what's going. Some of these are done, like Bella Corona is all completely sold out, I believe. And then we had a couple other, the one on Tomahawk, Idaho, where Dan's project was. This one's all built out too. This is Bella Gave. So I think this was handy for the council as they get questions from constituents. I wanted you to know that that map viewer is there, and that is, again, through our community. Another way to get to the city code is this way too. The other one we're going to talk about in a minute is the general plan. Still, we have a page for that. So go back here then, figure out where I was. And so I think we were going to talk about code compliance. I kind of briefly mentioned that the city had a code, 2006 property maintenance, and there was a lot of controversy in the city about cleaning up AJ and the property maintenance code. I understand there were over 300 people at the high school, at the auditorium, that really didn't want the city to have a property maintenance code. So what the council eventually adopted is the way a lot of legislation works. It ended up being a compromise. It is the code that the city lived with till 2018. And I think through some of these meetings, but also the council heard from some of the realtor organizations that when someone lists their house, they have to take some circuitous route to get to the house as they would show the house, because they'd have to go past houses that might not be up to the snuff of a buyer, right? So council kind of heard that. We went through the code, kind of cleaned it up. It's still pretty much the same basic code for what violations are. So I think, Victor, I'm turning it over to you right now, but we kind of do both complaint-based and proactive. So a lot of stuff, so people could go in. We have a 24-hour hotline. I think that's all in the slideshow. I think I'm stealing the slideshow. Do you want to go, Victor?
Yeah, you want to put my presentation on?
Yeah. We've had this kind of fun doing this presentation. Let me get rid of that. And does that video come up right away, or do you have to click on it? It just comes on? Oh, you got to hit. Do you want to use this? Do you want to do it?
Oh, there we go. So yeah, so next year we'll update it we got to update it. That has changed a little bit, but we didn't have enough time to do it because they just told us, or Larry just told me like 2 weeks ago, hey, we got to fill in today, so I didn't have enough time to do it. But so my name is Victor. I'm the co-compliance manager for the city of Apache Junction. Can you all hear me? I can talk pretty loud and pretty fast. All right, there we go. So code compliance overview. Pretty much what we do is we preserve and enhance the safety and appearance of our community, working with residents, businesses, even homeless or transients or homeless people sometimes, when you see them out there in a vacant lot. So that's what code compliance division works. Our goal is to reduce blight and encourage an attractive, safe, and desirable community. So we want you to be out there and enjoy where you live. We want your children to go out and play and enjoy the quality of life. So that's why code compliance exists. And of course, property values. So how do we accomplish this goal? We administer a fair and equitable program emphasizing voluntary compliance with city codes. So, we always want you guys to voluntarily comply. I don't like writing tickets. It takes a lot of time to write tickets. So I do whatever I can to get voluntary compliance. So why have a code compliance program, right? A lot of people ask, why? Why do you want to be such a pain, and why do you got to be there? Why do we want you there? Well, it's to create and maintain a safe and healthy environment, to prevent physical and aesthetic deterioration of the community, to protect property values of residents and businesses, to reduce vandalism and deter crime, and to establish a framework for community involvement to resolve public nuisances. So pretty much, it's like you heard of the broken window theory, right, all over the place. So if you see a house that's all beat up, run down, graffiti out, people are just gonna say, hey, this is a good place for me to come do a lot of crime, a lot of illegal activity. So that's why code compliance is there, because as we clean up a house, then that kind of deters those vandals away from that community, and it makes you a lot safer too. And also we want to encourage more residential and commercial property owners to voluntarily solve code violations on their properties. So in order to ensure that Apache Junction remains a community that is a clean and safe place to live, work, and play. So how do you report violations, or how do we get the violations to us? Well, some people will do it in person. They'll come in person and start screaming at us saying, hey, my neighbor has a dirty yard and it's gonna go up in flames and you ain't doing your work, so please get it done. So that's one way we get the complaints. Second way is a code compliance hotline. So usually I'll get the voicemail the next morning or the same day, depending on when they leave it. And another way they do it is in writing, which I don't think I've gotten one yet in writing. Usually if I get a writing, it's somebody complaining on me saying I'm doing a horrible job. It's usually never to report a violation. And you can always do it via email. It's simple, code@apachejunction.az.gov, and I'll get those emails and I'll open up cases and I'll respond to you saying thank you and the case has been opened. And the final way is, like Larry was saying, this My Government Online. So what you do is you go to the website, it's called My Government Online, and what you're going to do is you're going to click here where it says countries, United States, and then you're going to give the state, you're going to put Arizona, right? Once you go to Arizona, then for jurisdiction, you're going to see something that says Apache Junction there. And after you see Apache Junction, then the category is going to be Solution Center. Why they call it Solution Center, I don't know, but that's My Government Online for you, right? Nothing can be perfect, but Solution Center, and then you just fill in the blanks of address, what kind of violations is out there, and that kind of stuff. If you want to be contacted or not be contacted, and so that's another way of doing it. How do we enforce code violations? So we get a complaint, and code officers, so the team of code compliance is, I'm the code compliance manager. I have 2 senior code officers, which both are vacant right now. So, and then I have 2 code officers. So we all respond to complaints. I'm a working manager, which means that I go out there myself and also respond to complaints. So we get a complaint, we go out there. We usually, if we have serious risks to health and safety, those are given priority, obviously, because we want to make sure that everybody's safe. And the other violations or complaints that I receive are done in the order that they are received, right? So for all code complaints, the first step is for code compliance officers to go out there, verify the complaint. A lot of times we get complaints just because the neighbor's mad at the other neighbor, and of course it's not a valid complaint, so we close that one out. So just make sure you're nice to your neighbors. Make sure if you're drinking coffee, just give them some coffee or whatever. Bring them a donut, whatever it takes, right? So they don't file a complaint on you. We go out there, we see the complaint, we're going to issue what's known as a courtesy notice. For individuals who have been in the system, meaning that they have had prior complaints before, then we go straight to a notice of violation because obviously they already know the code, they've already been notified many times. Either one, a courtesy notice or notice of violation. If it's a Chapter 9, what Larry was talking about, it was just a property maintenance violation such as weeds, trash, inoperable vehicles, that kind of stuff. You get 10 days to be in compliance. For zoning violations, so if you have RVs on your property, setback requirements, anything in zoning, that's going to give you 21 days to be in compliance. So usually the way it works, we give the courtesy notice. After the courtesy notice expires, we go out there again. If the property is still in violation, then we give them a notice of violation. So in reality, you get 20 days or 42 days, depending if it's a property maintenance or a zoning. So like if the correction is not made in a reasonable amount of time, which is the kind of time I just told you now, then you're subject to further enforcement. And as Larry was saying, Chapter 9 of the City Apache Junction Property Maintenance Standards Code was effective April 1st, 2019. So kind of some exterior premises is probably one of the ones that we get most complaints on. So people just having a lot of trash on their property, a lot of storage, debris, also garbage. Where can you store your garbage? So what happens a lot of time, we don't want people just putting garbage in a can that's not tied or secured because you're going to create flies, obviously, and that kind of stuff. So we have a property maintenance code for vehicles. So, you cannot have inoperable vehicles on a property. What is an inoperable vehicle? A vehicle obviously that has flat tires, expired registration, or a vehicle that you can't lawfully drive out there on the street. A lot of people say, so what if I have an inoperable vehicle on my property? What's it going to do? A lot of people don't understand that inoperable vehicle, not only can it be visually nuisance to somebody, it can cause property values to go down, but also, let's say it's 120 degrees out there in the summer. This vehicle doesn't work. You have children or grandchildren that are playing out there, and they decide to go inside the vehicle, and they want to play in there. Guess what? They can't open the vehicle from the inside. What happens? So those are the major reasons we have this kind of code. So it's just not to make residents' lives miserable, as they want to call, right? There's a reason behind it that we have the codes. You have minor vehicle repairs, so you can do minor vehicle repairs at your property, such as, brakes, shocks, oil, air filters, kind of normal maintenance that you do on your vehicle, so that's okay. And what we don't want to see is, inoperable vehicles that are just inoperable or not being worked on, and you're not running a business out of your home. We don't want you to be repairing vehicles for Larry, even though he's a director and, he can give you money to repair it. That's not what we want to see. Also, another code is land maintenance and weeds. So a lot of times, individuals kind of let their weeds go real high sometimes. And that can definitely be a fire hazard. I mean, any little spark can turn a dry weed into flames right away, immediately, especially where they're so dry. And what's going to happen? Then your house is going to go up on fire. Then your neighbor's house is going to go up on fire. So that is the reason that, we try to keep up on the weeds. Also, we have, exterior building. We have pools, green pools, stagnant pools. Usually we can send a notice out, but we refer those to the county because they have the fish that they can throw in there to kind of eat all those mosquitoes out of there. So, green pools, obviously, because of the mosquito viruses out there. This is the reason we have that code. Exterior surfaces, so we want to make sure that your property is painted, that it's in good condition, because we don't want the deterioration to get worse. We don't want the property values to go down. And, they need to be impervious to moisture and weather elements, so we don't want you to be getting all kinds of mold and stuff inside your property if they're not up to code. So all building structure accessories, so keep everything in good repair, such as fences. We don't want fences falling down on individuals who are walking, falling down on your neighbors or your children that are playing in the backyard. Also, if you have a storage shed or an RV, we don't want individuals making that a living structure. So you cannot be sleeping or living in there. And let me tell you right now, we see a lot of those. Where I've gone into properties and the structure is a full-blown living facility. They have managed to put a kitchen in there. They have managed to use a bathroom in there. So we've seen it all. Addresses and buildings, obviously we have those for particular reasons, more public safety. So if you have an emergency, we want the public safety personnel to be able to see the address and be able to respond right away. So just make sure that you have your address and it's real visible from the public right away from the street. So whenever a public safety personnel needs to show up to your house, they can locate it immediately. So recreational vehicles, you're allowed to have one unoccupied recreational vehicle on your property. It can be parked in the rear or side yard behind the front facade of your property. So cannot be occupied and needs to be operable. So what's our process? We have the notice of violations that I spoke to you about earlier. After all that expires, then we have what's known as a civil citation. So individuals don't comply, then we issue a civil citation. And we have here what's known as the municipal court process, which means that all our citations go to the municipal court. So anytime we issue a citation, you have to show up to the municipal court and talk to the judge to get that worked out. What are the fines for code violations? For first offense, it's going to be $350 plus any court fees. For the second offense, it's $600. And for the third offense, it's going to be $1,000. And this is all within a 24-month period. So if you get 3 citations within 24 months for property maintenance, that's what you're looking at. So this is kind of some before and after. This is kind of to show you, hey, we do work in code. We just don't drive around in our vehicles. So you can kind of see at the left, the before picture, see how it looks. We had a lot of transient activity in this vacant lot, a lot of trash being created by that, a lot of other things that shouldn't be there. And when you look at the right picture, the after picture, you can see the big difference there. Here's another one where it was a property. This one was done by an administrative abatement. So code compliance also now started doing administrative or court order abatements for properties. So if the owner is deceased or we can't find them or the owner is just not complying, then we obtain a court order to be able to clean out the property, and then we just file a lien on the property for the amount that it costs us to clean it up. So this is one of those properties where we had to do an abatement because the property owner is nowhere to be found, and you can tell the difference from the before and after just by using that process. And here's another one, vacant lot. You can see where there was just a lot of activity, a lot of trash, weeds, and you can see the before and after. So any questions? Yeah, so you have was that code compliance hotline. That's what it is. It's like what you could do is call in and you leave the information and then we'll get it. No, I haven't got any pranks. I just get people that get upset at their neighbors and they just want to call in for any reason they can. Right there, code compliance hotline.
That's the number. She will not answer the phone, but
You mentioned something about the homeless. So what is your involvement with the homeless population?
So usually with the homeless, we try to talk to them and try to see if we can find resources for them to go elsewhere, because a lot of times when they're out there at vacant lots, they're creating a lot of debris, a lot of unsightly, properties out there because of all the debris they're creating. And we work with the property owners also to get those properties cleaned up. Usually we have to refer them to an agency. We have to call PD to see if they have, or police department to see if they have any other options of what they can do to help them out. That's what we do.
So that's like if they're on somebody's property?
Correct. I only focus when it's private property. Correct.
one of the things was all these are anonymous. So if someone calls the hotline, even if you, we have a little orange slip. If you come in the office, you can fill it out. That sometimes whoever gets complained against, they will want to do a public records request and want to see who made the complaint. Any public records request, we get the information, we send it to the attorney. He redacts out any information as to who called and made the complaint. So everything is always anonymous because it protects, I guess, neighborhood relations, if you will. But it is anonymous, and I think it also allows people to go ahead and make the complaint without fear of retribution from a neighbor. So they're always anonymous, and there was some other point I wanted to make out of that. Well, again, people, they do try to figure it out, or they assume, and then they go confront the neighbor. But this is another way on MyGov. Again, you can put your name and register in there, but I think there is a way too, Victor, to be anonymous, right? You're actually live on the website here?
So this is the website that Larry was talking about earlier. that he said he was going to go into, but he forgot about it. So I'll go into it for him. So this is where you can apply for permits. You can go to Solution Center, which is code compliance, planning and zoning. So you can do all kinds of applications in here. What you do is you create an account, obviously. Even for the Solution Center, you create an account, okay? And then you're just going to submit a request. And all your information is going to be anonymous, so we're never going to tell anybody who complained. But what I was telling you here, you go to county or country, United States, you're going to select Arizona. I guess if this was working, it doesn't want to work. But oh, there we go. It's just slow. So go to Arizona here. Jurisdiction, Apache Junction. There's no more cities here because this is the only city to serve here in Arizona for now. And then the category is just going to be Solution Center, the only category there. Just hit next. And then from here is just more of fill in the blanks. They're going to ask you for like the address, what the issue is. Here's where you can create an account or you can proceed anonymously. We're going to proceed anonymously for now. And that's where you enter the address, the zip code, and pretty much just it's fill in the blanks kind of stuff. They're going to ask you what the problem is. You kind of do a description of the problem. If you want to attach pictures, then you do that also. So this is kind of how my government line works. And this is kind of like the same process. So you want to apply for a permit, you just come here, apply for a permit or planning and zoning. You want to do a variance or whatever it is for planning, then you also do the application here.
One of the things that Victor teaches classes on this, he is the president of the Code Enforcement League of Arizona. Is that your title, Victor?
Yeah, so just like any professional job, they have state or associations, such as, so here in Arizona, we have what's known as the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, and we provide training for code enforcement officers in the state. And it's part of our job just to kind of follow legislation, to get involved in that, and give any training that we can to code enforcement officers throughout the state, kind of get them certified through our process. So this year, yes, I'm the president of it, so I get to do a lot more volunteer work is what it is. But, like I tell a lot of individuals, I like what I do. I'm in this industry because I love my job, and I like to kind of train other individuals as far as to what I know. So this is something that I like doing. It's my passion, doing code enforcement.
One of the big things with that is the Constitution. So people have constitutional rights. We can't just walk into your backyard. We get accused of, standing on a pickup truck or hiring, inspectors that are 6'10". We can't hold the camera over the fence. We can't stand up on a pickup truck. The code is pretty specific. We can be on a public street. We can be on a public easement that's available to everyone. One of the sections of the code that was changed was certain parts of the code said certain infractions. If a neighbor invites us in and we come into a neighbor's backyard invited and they have to look at the neighbor's property, certain types in the code said, yes, you could write that up. Other parts of the code, like an abandoned vehicle, inoperable vehicle in the front yard, we could write it up. But if a neighbor invites us into the backyard and there's 10 of them in the backyard, we weren't able to write that up. So one of the things the council said was, if the neighbor can see it, it's a blight to them. Just because you can't see it from the street, just because you can't see it from an alley, but if a neighbor has to look at it. Now, if they put up a 6-foot fence and now you can no longer see it, then those 10 cars that all have mosquitoes in them, they don't exist. So we run into that, but Victor is very good about training his folks that we respect people's constitutional rights. We know when we go to court and we have to show pictures, we have to, and the judge knows, or they can ask, was this taken from a legitimate spot? And so we always do. The other phenomenon we see a lot is a neighbor or a person gets written up and then they'll drive around like 10 block area and they'll start turning in everybody else, and then Victor's, hotline will go off or whatever. So, and that's understandable. And our job is to enforce it fairly uniformly. And so if we're out there enforcing something and we see the same thing next door, we got a complaint on parcel A, but the same thing's happening on B, we got to write up parcel B as well. So.
And I mean, I get individuals that call me and they'll tell me, okay, I want to complain on 2222 West Main, but don't open a case on 2226 next West Main, just on that one. And we do get it. So, and unfortunately, no. I mean, we have to be equitable when we're enforcing our codes. And if we see a violation right next door, then we definitely have to open a case on that one.
If you have a property that's in disarray, physical disarray, some expensive repair, but it's a rental, and the renters don't have the authority to make those physical changes. How do you handle that?
We go after what's known as the property owner. We send the property owner a notice, and we follow the code enforcement process with the property owner. So we don't hold the tenants responsible for that kind of stuff, where the owner is supposed to be responsible.
But in cases, we do go after both. So if we have an
Yeah, if it's a
unsanitary-
situation
yeah.
where it was tenant cost, then yeah, we'll go after both.
How do you become a code enforcer? Like, what qualifications do you need for that?
So for initial code enforcement, pretty much what I look at is when I came in here, and Larry would tell you this, I changed the job description, because I don't want to be, when I was really getting into the field, where they wanted this, you need to have the training, you need to have this and that. It's like, I just look at persons who can provide. My main concern is providing excellent customer service to the residents, because even though we're an enforcement authority, our job is to enforce laws and ordinances. I still feel that we need to provide that customer service to everybody that we deal with. And just having public contact experience and being able to interpret laws and codes, being able to have those communication skills, those writing skills, and everything else. I think that I'm okay with training that individual to become a expert code enforcement officer. I think it's just a lot of training, a lot of me working with those individuals, and making them good code enforcement officers. It's just, I think my main concern is, a lot of times it's hard to train in customer service. And because a lot of people, once they don't have that customer service in them, they're not going to learn it. So my thing is, if I can get somebody who has good customer service skills, who can talk to people, I can train on the rest.
More questions out there?
Any addresses? She would have brought those orange forms with us, Victor, so we could have.
He was trying to bring him, but I hid him from him.
Can they apply to the city to get some kind of a business permit if they're doing a little bit of extra work besides, changing a tire or their oil?
Yeah, so there's guidelines to having a home occupation, and Rudy can talk about those because he is the planning manager. He knows it more than I do. But part of the guidelines is that you're not going to have any exterior work. You're not going to have customers coming in and out when you're having a home occupation. So that's a lot of things that we look at when we're going out there. And I think a mechanic will probably not qualify for a home occupation, because you do have customers coming in and out. The work's going to be done outside. And a lot of times what happens is a lot of vehicles are going to be parked at your house.
So that is one of the code modifications that the council met. We made very clear definitions. Yeah, you can even change a water pump. That's what it said. You can do certain things that you can do on a Saturday or whatever, but we're seeing, the entire cars getting rebuilt, engines replaced, transmissions replaced, whole front ends being replaced. And so we kind of distinguish between what's a reasonable, common, ordinary repair versus somebody doing wholesale fixing up cars. So and a lot of it was because people were running these businesses in the front yard, in the driveway, and people are having to deal with it. They're out there late at night and stuff.
Okay, and if you have any more questions you can think of later on, feel free to call me, email me, that code at apachejunctionac.gov. Yeah, that goes directly to me. Or you can always just come find me here. I'm right here at 300 West Superstition Boulevard, or East Superstition Boulevard. I'm always there. And whatever, if you ever want to just come out and learn about code compliance, I'll be willing to kind of talk to you about more specifically what code compliance is.
Thank you, Victor.
And go Devils.
These poor misguided folks don't know about the original land-grant University of Arizona. Is this a good place to take a little quick break? Or?
Yeah, I think so. We can take a quick break.
All right, let's do
Come up and
5
ask
minutes.
us any questions while you're on break, that's fine.
Let's come back at 7:30. Okay, we ready? I meant to tell everybody that I do have the printout from the presentation on our first week, right up here. Already 3-hole punch, so it goes right in your binder. And if you did not get a binder, I think everybody in here has a binder now. That we should introduce the Simpsons in the back because they were remote attendees the first week, but they are with us in person. So you can say hi to Mr. and Mrs. Simpson back there. And if you wanted at the end of the night, come and get a printout. You can come and get a printout for your binder. Also pads of paper if you need pads of paper. Otherwise, you ready?
Yeah, I just want to turn it back to if anybody had any building questions, because otherwise I'm going to have Adrian go home. Does anybody have any building department questions? Same thing, you go to My Government Online, or you come to the counter, ask questions, but we work with a lot of contractors, engineers, architects, depending on the type of project. And again, we're trying to be more over time, like try to do more over-the-counter permits, like it shouldn't take you 3 weeks to get a pool permit. So I think part of bringing Adrian on board is trying to improve customer service and getting things turned around quicker, and we're trying to grow as the city grows. So we want people to get their projects started and done. So for the most part, I would say I think it's a 90-10 rule, like everything in life. So 90% of the people do it very well, and we spend a lot of our time with 10% of the people that we have to kind of help them along. So, but Adrian's here. Again, same building. No questions? Thank you, gentlemen. You did great tonight. Adrian, you did great tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about the general plan. So I have some copies that we can just pass around. You can kind of flip through it as I'm talking here. But every 10 years in Arizona, cities like us, and there's a difference. Ours is called a general plan. The county has a comprehensive plan, so the statute's a little bit different. But ours are general, so you don't see as much very specific on a land use map, like you can't really find your parcel on the land use map. I mean, it is because it's in GIS, but so the city has routinely every 10 years done a general plan, and ours was adopted in 2010 and then again in February of 2020. So we went through a process where here we had zero budget. So we knew that Gilbert, I think, had like a $300,000 budget to do their plan, and they spent like $50,000-$60,000 just on a firm to do public involvement. And so we didn't have a budget, we had a zero budget. So this was all done in-house. Every single department head got involved, police chief. We reached out, the fire district, water and sewer district directors, park and rec director, economic development director. They each wrote their elements. We worked with them as part of that internal, our staff. We had an intern do a downtown element for the city, and then we ended up hiring her as a planner. We had another intern do the environmental element. Matt Busby, who you've met, did all the graphics. He put this whole document together. And I was going to say on the next slide, we did win an award through the Arizona Planning Association, so it's honorable mention. We had submitted it the year before. Something happened with COVID, so they gave us an award. They had like 3 divisions: small city, medium city, large city. Apparently they got rid of one division. There were just 2 divisions, so we were in, I guess, the medium-sized city. But we're proud of it because it was done all in-house. Everybody got a chance to work on it. We had some public open houses. We went out to the rodeo grounds. We went to the Blues and Brews Festival when it was going to try to get some public input. And some of the main features I like about it is most in the state statute, you don't have to do an intergovernmental cooperation element, but we did. We wanted to make sure we're working with our neighbors. You don't have to do a downtown element. And our water, every jurisdiction has to do a water resources element, but we called ours One Water, one H2O, because we wanted people to think about water, not just drinking water. Where's the drinking water going to come from? Because we're all going to know that we have to start reusing our water. So we take it to the wastewater treatment plant, they clean it, and then it goes down the wash and it percolates, and then You can pull it out of the ground, retreat it, and use it again. So stormwater, want to make sure that we're handling stormwater. So we're thinking of just like the water cycle, is that we know the water runs in a cycle. It's not just you turn on the tap and there's how much water do we need for the next 10,000 housing units. So the downtown element we thought was important because at some point we're going to be a city of 50, 60, 80,000, and the city doesn't really have a town center. So as planners, we think it was important to put some discussion in the general plan about the city having a town center. And so it helps identify this just the way AJ kind of happened. It was all federal land out here. It got divided. Some of it's still federal land, some of it's state land, state trust land. And the city kind of just grew up along Apache Trail. Got a whole nother slideshow for downtown. But there wasn't anything out here till, I don't know, well, the city was incorporated in 1978. So starting in like the early 70s, the county was approving a lot of development out here when it was still the county. So like Santan Valley is not in a city. So you have 100,000 people living out in Santan Valley that's not part, they don't have a community per se. Kind of just happened out there. So it took 7 times for the city, 7 different elections for the city to become a city. So it got turned down by the voters, and then they'd kind of pluck out some folks and then vote again, and then still didn't pass. So the city has, I think, 15 county islands in the middle of the city. So we can pull up that map if you ever want to see it. But so when you drive around, you can't tell that there's a county island at Southern and Tomahawk, but there's a county island. So anyway, that document was formally adopted. It went through the Planning Commission. Through that process, it was adopted by the council in February of 2020, and then it had to go to the voters. So in Arizona, it's on the ballot. Hopefully you voted in favor of it. 3/4 of the voters who voted in favor of the general plan. And we kind of use it every day. So it's not just this thing that sits on a shelf and collects dust, but the way the plan gets implemented is through that zoning code I showed you up on the screen and the subdivision ordinance. And then as proposals come through, we look in the plan for guidance, direction. You know, is this consistent? Is this development that we're seeing right here consistent with the general plan? And so as we write our staff report, we write whether it is or it isn't. If it isn't, we recommend against the development 99.9% of the time. What our recommendation is just a recommendation. It goes to the Planning Commission. There's a meeting like this, they all sit up there and they vote. They're volunteers. So they vote on a rezoning or conditional use permit. And their vote may be different than our recommendation. Or in another case, then it goes to the council. So rezoning then goes to the council. So the Plan Commission could recommend approval, but then it gets to the council, they can vote denial. There's the ultimate, that's where the buck stops. So by and large, we've seen a lot of development here. I think we were looking, if you look at that map viewer, there's about 2,000 housing units that are going in north of baseline. So a lot of single family infill. And AJ has been a little bit different to develop because the city doesn't have its own water and sewer system. These are the elements. You're looking through the table of contents, so I won't go through them. But those are that's the elements of the plan. I'm going to have, this is just one document. It just kind of have a map of the city up there. But large parts of the city don't have water and sewer. And that's kind of why they've remained undeveloped. So the city has 2 water providers. One is Arizona Water, private company, and the other one is the Apache Junction Water Utilities Community Facilities District. It's a district. So with 2 water providers, and same thing with the sewer district. A lot of cities that have their own sewer utility, if they want to see development someplace, they'll go put a sewer pipe out there, and then development will kind of move out that way. So a lot of the area is still not developed because water and sewer isn't out there. And then a lot of it is because of the plan itself. These areas that are in the light color, those are really, that's kind of our 1.25 acre lot zoning. That's where you see the horse property. That's where people are trying to preserve that way of life. So we don't see a lot of that development kind of in these areas. This is what we've described, and you'll see it in the plan as our downtown. And it looks big compared to the rest, but when now you start thinking of the city as something that's more than just, 11 or 12 square miles, but much bigger. So the next slide shows the annexation, but this is what I was talking about. This land in the green in the middle is BLM. So this pretty much follows the big power lines that go through. This is Silly Mountain down in here. And so in our general plan, one of the features that I think is kind of a hallmark of it is this mile between Lost Dutchman and McKellips. It is state trust land, and it's also this BLM land. So we've designated this light and dark green as conservation in our plan. But that doesn't mean anything. It's just in the plan, it's not protected. So tomorrow the state could have an auction, although it takes a year to go to auction, and this lighter green could all be houses. So we've advocated for, City of Scottsdale, they purchased through taxes the McDowell Mountain Preserve. So this land is not protected. I think, to me, as a planner, 50 years from now, this would be a hallmark of the city to still have this 12 miles of undeveloped land at the north and east side. But it's really up to you folks to kind of make that happen. We can put it in the plan gets voted on, but it really takes a discussion at the council level to say, well, how would we actually go out and find the money so the city would show up at the auction with a check? So it's really, I think, for the various interest groups, whether they're hikers or horseback riders or joggers or people that just like that open space. But it's not protected. It's a little bit harder for the state to they can go to an auction. The BLM, not sure what would happen there, but, and some of it, not all of it is developable. Like up in here, this is kind of a flood structure up here. So some of this land kind of acts as that. But anyway, I think that's a good feature. The long term for the city has to kind of wrestle with how could the city protect that 12 square miles. I think I'm going to have Rudy. This says One Water, Rudy, but you don't have to talk about One Water. I just wanted Rudy to talk about the annexation. Bryant calls him Mr. Annexation. He has pretty much done every annexation since 1989, and he does a lot more than that, but it's a very precise way to do an annexation. So when the city wanted to annex 6,600 acres, you got to cross every I and T, otherwise like you start over and all that. So this was kind of a big deal for the city, but I'm gonna let Rudy, are you gonna talk from there, or do you wanna use this thing? You can do. All right.
Hi, my name is Rudy Esquivias. I am the planning manager. Back up a little bit. This is in the general plans you guys are looking at. This is what we call our future land use map. This is a guide for development. In other words, when a developer comes in and says, I want to rezone a certain property, we look at the land use map. Is it in compliance with the land use map? Does this area show that there should be an industrial use there? Does this area show that it is intended for residential or multifamily or other various uses? So this is a policy document. It's a guide to how what the city wants to be when it grows up, in effect. If you go online and you look at our land use plan in our GIS system, you can actually get much more into detail about the various land uses around town. One thing I'll just mention here real quick is that this area here, let me see if I get, okay, here. So this area here, within the blue line, is what we call our sphere of influence. Not all of this land is inside the city limits right now. For example, Gold Canyon is not inside the city limits. The lands between McKellips and McDowell are not in the city limits. Between Mountain View and Barkley are not in the city limits. But this is what we call our sphere of influence. If the county is thinking of approving a project in these areas, well, they know that they want to see comments from Apache Junction, and if it's something that we're okay with, it might be no comment. If it's something that we're concerned with, then we'll probably give them a recommendation or comments on their proposal. The actual city limits, and this plan is just a little bit out of date. This is this dotted line that you see right here. That is the actual city limits. Larry mentioned there are some county islands, for example, this one here, there's a couple over here, and there's some little ones that you can't really see on this map, but there are county islands within the borders of our overall city limits area. One thing this map does not show yet, because it hadn't happened yet, is basically the area between Elliott and the new SR 24 alignment, between Meridian and the CAP Canal. This area right here is now inside the city limits. This is the area that we very recently annexed in cooperation. That it was a planning effort that lasted, the process itself lasted about a year and a half, couple of years. The planning of it goes much farther than that. But this is basically the property that we annexed in close cooperation with the State Land Department and a couple of developers who are interested in developing the land. So if we go to the next graphic, this area here is the area that was annexed. However, the State Land Department has only sold for development this area here, which is a little bit over 4 square miles. If you folks are familiar with what's going on in Mesa with Eastmark, some of those same developers are going to be developing this area here. It's called Reverence at Apache Junction. Some of us, Well, Superstition Vistas is the much larger swath of state land, which is about 275 square miles. This big area called Superstition Vistas. This is the first phase of Superstition Vistas that's going to be developed, and Brookfield and D.R. Horton are calling their part of it Reverence. So there is 2 master developers, D.R. Horton, who was a national builder. They've done homes all over the country, all over Phoenix, and Brookfield. They're more of a high-end real estate company. They work with developers to develop communities. They are the folks who put together the Eastmark deal and are responsible for a lot of development in Eastmark. They have basically acquired more or less the east half of this 4 square mile property east of Ironwood, and D.R. Horton more or less is going to be developing the area west of Ironwood. And there's a little bit of overlap, but that's basically the dividing line. I think Larry mentioned a little bit ago, this first 4 square miles is proposed to roll out in the next 10 years or so. We're looking at about 11,000 residential units, and that is a mix of single-family residential, multifamily residential, apartments, condos, the full mix of different types of residences, and also many, I forget how many parks, but many neighborhood parks, a couple of larger parks, a lot of green space, a lot of trails, and about 40 acres, hopefully more, of commercial development. So there is going to be shopping, there's going to be employment, there's going to be restaurants and stuff like that. It's called Master Plan Community. This is a Master Plan Community. The area that got rezoned, now, and let me back up a little bit more. This area right here that is already inside the city limits, except for this county island here, this area here is also State Land Department. The sewer district property is right there. County Island's right there. So this and then all of this down here was also part of 2 master plan communities. The first master plan community is the part that's being developed by Horton and Brookfield. And then there's another master plan community document for the rest of the property. The rest of the property, under the development agreement between the developers and the State Land Department, they will not sell additional properties for at least 8 years. So, but after 8 years has passed, then we may see other pieces of this state land area go up for auction. The 4 square miles is the one that's been auctioned right now. So Larry mentioned we're hiring 3 new code officers, more building inspectors. We're trying to hire a project engineer, an engineering tech, maybe a planning tech. So anyway, we're trying to get more people into development services because we're going to be very, very busy for, the next 10 years. Cross our fingers, the economy stays decent. AJ is going to grow quite a bit. So what does 11,000 dwelling units translate to? About 30,000 more people, 35,000 more people. I forget exactly what the census has us at persons per household. I want to say 2.6. So, yeah, this will be more like 3 because it's going to be a lot more family oriented. Probably not much in the way of 55 plus communities. We already have many 55 plus communities in the city of Apache Junction. I mean, one thing we didn't touch on is, a bunch of our elementary schools are closed because we just don't have the population, we don't have the kids. Hopefully more families, more kids, we'll see some of those schools open up again. Another group that was involved in the drafting of our general plan was the school district. So it wasn't just city staff, it was also the fire department, our neighbors, the school district, other entities that had input into our process. Once again, that's why the general plan is a very important document. Cities are supposed to adopt or re-adopt or update their general plans every 10 years. General plan amendments, what's called a major general plan amendment in Arizona cities are only allowed to do it once a year. What is a major general plan amendment? Well, in our general plan, there's some definitions there. In terms of land use, basically 10 acres or more is considered a general plan amendment. If Larry pointed to the low density areas, for example, if someone out here wanted to rezone 10 acres for a medium density neighborhood or a higher density neighborhood, they couldn't just do it. They couldn't just apply. If it's 10 or more acres, they would have to go through a general plan amendment process, which once again is only allowed once a year, and as well as a rezoning process. Now, other cities, for example, Phoenix is a much bigger city than we are. I think their major amendments start at like 100 acres. But in Apache Junction, we decided that 10 acres was our benchmark for us. So the other thing that planners deal with a lot is the zoning ordinance. Every single private property in Apache Junction is zoned something. Whether it's zoned residential, commercial, industrial, not too much industrial, but multifamily. So under the zoning district, you have certain development rights, you have certain development requirements. This is the maximum building height, these are the setbacks, this is the open space. If people want to deviate from that, that's what the rezoning process is for. If people want to get special exceptions, then we have a zoning district overlay. It's type of overlay called a planned development, where a developer comes in, he says, you know what, I want to have lots that are a little smaller than 5,000. I want to have setbacks that are different. What do we need to do? Okay, well, we'll need to process you through what's called a planned development rezoning. But, Mr. Developer, now we get to do a little horse trading, okay? If the city's going to deviate from its standards or relax its standards, what do we get in return? And the types of things that we typically negotiate for is architectural standards, landscaping, amenities. If you're going to have a neighborhood of 200 homes and each lot has a setback difference or a height difference, you know what? Maybe we want a community pool, maybe we want a clubhouse, maybe we want a couple of tile lots, maybe we want picnic areas. Those are the types of things that we typically negotiate for. Nice architecture, four-sided architecture. If you look at the newer communities that are going up around town, they're pretty much all four-sided architecture, and a lot of the developments that you do see going up around town have been negotiated. The first proposal is always the low-end proposal, and we meet with folks, and we meet with them again, and we ask for revisions, and eventually, the new Popeyes, for example, I think that was probably the fourth revision of Popeyes before we finally said, okay, yeah, this looks good, let's go with it. Same thing with the new multifamily developments that we're seeing. All of a sudden, Apache Junction never had anybody interested doing in multifamily, and now in the last 5 years or so, we're just seeing a lot of that. The economy is right, the lending rates are right, and all of a sudden, all these vacant parcels that sat vacant for years and years and years and years are now gained a lot of interest for multifamily.
We've got some couple of multifamily products that were approved where basically they look like individual houses, but in fact, it's one property, one ownership, and each of those individual houses is a rental. They're called detached single-family rental communities. And we've also got a couple of townhome projects in the pipeline, as well as single-family home neighborhoods. A lot of stuff going on. Like Larry mentioned, we've got a couple of thousand residential units in process right now for what we call the north part of the city, which is basically everything north of Baseline. We're already working with D.R. Horton and Brookfield on their initial plats for a couple of thousand housing units in the new master plan community area. We're working with Popeyes, we're working with Circle K, we're working with Checorado or one of the auto things. We got a new Dutch Brothers, we got Panda Express, we got Barrows, we got the new Fry's, which came online a few years ago. So a lot of infill. A lot of infill. There's many properties in Apache Junction that have sat vacant for many, many years because they have wash issues. We're on the side of the mountain. And when you're on the side of the mountain, water tends to go downhill. And so we've got many, many hundreds of tributary washes in Apache Junction that have constrained development over the years because that requires special engineering, special things that you have to do to the land to deal with the washes. And but now land is valuable. Even those properties are starting to see action and development. So we're all very excited. We're all very busy. It's fun. It's a fun time to be a planner in Apache Junction, and be happy to answer any questions. Yes. Sure.
So one thing you said was four-sided architecture.
Yes.
Could you define that?
Yeah, we want to see architectural features on all four sides of a building, not just the front. You know, we've had developers tell us, well, hey, I'll give you a really nice looking front, but I want the side to be just a plain metal wall, or I want it to be really plain, flat facades. It's like, no, we want to see some pop-outs. We want to see some color variation. We want to see some material variations on all four sides of the building. And sometimes, for example, on the residential units, particularly if they're more on the starter end units, we might just end up with pop-outs and maybe a couple of different color contrasts and things like that. But typically, four-sided means architectural features on all four sides of the building, not just the side of the building that you see from the street. Because everybody has a neighbor. You're going to see the back of the building. You're going to see the side of the building. Why not look at something nice instead of just, you know, plain stucco walls or plain metal walls, that kind of thing? And I said metal. We really don't. We really don't allow metal buildings anymore. I mean, you can build a metal shell, but even a metal shell can be dressed up with stucco or some other kind of siding. The only zoning district that still allows plain metal buildings is our large lot horse properties, GR and RS 54. And then, of course, small sheds, less than 120 square feet can be metal, but basically everything else has to be architecturally treated.
Another question on metal buildings. It's real popular in some places to have container homes, you know, like shipping container homes.
Yes.
Do we do that
Apache
here?
Junction has not yet developed a standard for conventional homes or these other things that they call tiny homes.
What are they called?
Tiny homes?
Oh, tiny.
Yeah, they can be, you know, 200 square feet or, you know, between 200 and 400 square feet. A lot of people have asked. But we have not yet come up with building code mechanisms or other architectural standards to deal with those types of units yet.
But if you can design something that meets the International Residential Code, so we don't prohibit someone from bringing in 4 cargo containers and turning it into a house, but you have to build it to meet the building code.
Oh, okay.
And the same thing for a tiny house. So we actually did a project with an ASU student. We have some older manufactured home RV parks, and she did a study. We have about 30 of them that are kind of older, and if there's a way to do redevelopment, you'd like to do that without displacing the people that live there. So one idea that we've talked about is like a tiny home subdivision, but you would build the houses per the residential building code. And I think that might be a good interim solution. I mean, that way in theory, they could own their lot. It might appreciate because a manufactured home or isn't generally going to appreciate, or maybe not appreciate as much as one built on site. So that overlay that Rudy talked about, planned development, we've talked about using that overlay zoning for some of these older RV parks where you have certain parts of the city, you might have a house, and then somehow when it was in the county, you have 7 RVs kind of in the backyard. Ultimately, those will get redeveloped, and what should they be? Sometimes they get developed into 3 single-family lots, but maybe there's a way to kind of keep that same density, but maybe a different type of product. And now you have houses that are, computer printed. They have the, there's now some things I think in Phoenix that are doing some
3D printed houses.
3D printed houses and things like that. So Sears used to deliver a house to your house, or to your lot, and you would go build it. So I think there'll still be innovations over time. Housing is getting super, super expensive, and so that's why developers, land is expensive. That's why they want to go down below our 5,000 square foot lot. They want to have a 4,500 square foot lot or a 3,900 square foot lot. So part of that is economics, and part of it is they want to get more yield. But
I had one more question. I'm not so good with how many acres, square miles to acres. So you mentioned 4 square miles.
Yes.
But then I thought you said 40 acres of commercial property? So
Yes, so the auction area is just about 2,800 acres, and a couple of what we call sections right along Meridian are actually a little bigger than a square mile.
so a square mile is 640 acres.
Yeah.
Where's that? That we can't blow up. I probably have another one. So those western sections are, instead of 640, they're all like 740, something like that. And part of it is because of Meridian Road. Rudy knows more about this than I do. That's like everywhere in town. You see Baseline Road has that curvature in the valley. This is the end of a township, right? And curvature of the earth and all this other stuff. So that's why these square miles are a little bit bigger than a traditional 640. So 40 acres is what they're proposing for commercial, or that would be a quarter section.
So I saw in the 2020 plan about the dark skies
Yes.
community. So my community, I bought in Dan. So I'm like, darn, because I hate the street lights in there, et cetera. So these new communities, since that's part of the plan, are they going to have to adhere to the dark skies designation that I saw in the plan?
Yes, that was a big
More
part of
than what
discussion.
Dan's neighborhood had to do, for example.
The dark sky issue was a big part of our discussion in the MPCs. There is a thing called the National Dark Sky Standard. The master plan communities will not quite meet that standard. We have a council member, or actually our city council gave us direction to look into what would be required to convert Apache Junction into a dark sky, international dark sky community. So one of our planners on staff is working with the International Dark Sky right now to look at our lighting standards. What do we need to change to be able to become dark sky? At least, once again, north of baseline, south of baseline, it'll come close, but not quite. There's some areas that, and particularly because you got the SR24 down there, so for various reasons, the new auction areas will not be dark sky unless we change those codes along with the rest of the codes in the city.
So we have a dark sky ordinance that's been around for a long time.
No, for new developments moving in north of baseline, yes, they are required to comply with dark sky. But dark sky doesn't mean no lights. Dark sky means shielded lights.
I would say we're like 95% there. So the current ordinance doesn't meet the international dark sky standards. So we call our ordinance, or our chapter within the zoning code, the dark sky lighting ordinance, and that's what was adopted by the city in 2005 or 6, something like that. And there's a time frame. So if we want to be, the only one in the valley is Fountain Hills. So Sedona, Cottonwood, some of those, and again, it's a worldwide, but they're not typically, other than resort-type communities. Fountain Hills might be the closest one. Like, they just opened up this dark sky hotel that's kind of between Scottsdale and Fountain Hills, kind of up into the mountains. So what we were proposing is to take our current code and make it meet the standard. In the meantime, and that's pretty simple, because they've kind of said, yeah, if you make these changes, your current code will be dark sky standard. But what these master plan community developers come in, and they come in with a 300-page document and said, we're going to kind of insert this code into your zoning code. So we worked with them as best we could. The dark sky folks don't write your code for you. They'll evaluate your code, and they basically said, yeah, this line here doesn't meet the dark sky. So it's close, but we also have 5 years for like all the city street lights. A lot of cities are going to the more amber, that's 3,000 Kelvin, and you basically, as cities change out their LED lights on their street lights, they replace them with the white bright light, the blue light, down to a warmer 3,000. And it's supposed to be better for sleeping and birds and everything. So, of course, we endorse it, we embrace it. We now kind of have to go back to the developers. These developers may decide yes, but the rest of that land is actually still owned by the state. And the state didn't really want to restrict ultimately what a buyer might want. So again, I think it's a negotiated thing. We're still waiting to hear from the dark sky community as to what specific language would we need to change to make that 300-page or the other one's 100-page zoning code just for this land to bring it back into the dark sky.
Good question. Is Glendale got that? Because when I'm there at night, they got all those yellow lights.
I think like Mesa is changing a lot of their street lights to the amber, and it's a temperature grade. I could Google it. There's a slide that says 3,000 Kelvin, but it's not just the light and the color temperature of the light, but whether that light is shielded, is it down, what is the spacing? So there's, I'm not a lighting engineer, but you almost have to be a lighting engineer to kind of understand how this all works together. So you have the spacing of the lights, the height of the light makes a difference. What we were trying to do with Lennar, and there was some disconnect. We as planners, we had Lennar saying, we'll agree to 15-foot tall lights. Well, our lighting standards in the code allow for 30-foot lights in a neighborhood. So again, a disconnect between us and the city engineering department. Lennar was willing to do it. Didn't happen, and I guess that's on all of us, but there's still a lot of work to do. So sometimes even within a small city like us, we're not working at cross purposes, but we didn't, I guess, let Lennar know that, or let the engineering department know that, hey, that's an okay thing.
That's
So-
the development over there on Goldfield, correct?
Yeah, and we just installed some lights south on Delaware that are all solar. We got federal block grant money to put in all these lights, and there it's like daylight over there. So I'm like, I'm scratching my head, how did this happen when we've been talking about it? And so we can go in and swap out the lamp, and you can put in an amber, but they'll still be LEDs. So,
I think a couple of folks.
yes, sir.
I just had a quick question.
With the new master plan communities going in down south, how is that going to interact with Ironwood Road?
So Ironwood Road, there was a traffic study. So for that whole area, Rudy kind of alluded to the darker blue is the 2,780 acres. The other checkered pattern is part of the annexation area, and then to the north up to baseline, that's like 8,200 acres total. The developers that are going in on the 3,000 acres or 2,782, they had to do master engineering plans. They had to design water and sewer for 8,000 acres. So they're kind of starting, but they have to put the backbone in for 8,000 acres. So they got to calculate and figure out, well, how many total units? There's 11,000 coming now, but there can be a total of 30,000. So there was a master transportation study, a master water study, a master water reuse study. That's the potable water reuse study, sanitary sewer, and stormwater. So all those master plans were done, and they did traffic modeling to figure out when does Ironwood go to 6-lane. What it turns out is the 24 will relieve a lot of the immediate demand, so it's supposed to cut the current load down in half. But then as this develops, those cars are going to appear again. Meridian ends up being 6-lane. So Meridian will end up having an interchange. The rest of the interchange will be built at 60 and Meridian. You have to kind of carve through some state land and then come down Meridian, but on the Mesa side, they're already planning for 3 lanes on the Mesa side, 3 lanes on the AJ side, and the first traffic study showed that we needed an 8-lane road on Ironwood. Well, what Rudy was saying is the developers on the east side of Ironwood, they didn't want to be separated by an 8-lane road, so they were trying to do everything they can to try to keep it to a 6-lane road.
So does Meridian go east and west now?
Meridian is the north-south road.
I mean, onto the 60,
Say it again?
onto the 60, is it gonna have a?
Well, the interchange?
In a full interchange, what's prohibited now is funding, and because the CAP canal is there. But ultimately, when Meridian Road is expanded and you create the interchange, so the little project they did now on Meridian was just kind of a road improvement project. They still have to get, because I think there's some federal land, I think it's the Bureau of Reclamation owns some land in there that they have to acquire, and there's some floodplain in there too. So on the northeast corner of that intersection, there's FEMA floodplain in there too that affects how that full-blown interchange could work.
Are you asking about the 24 in Meridian or baseline in Meridian?
The 60 in Meridian is what you're talking about. That ultimately should eventually be a full-blown thing. And the other thing that shows on here is the east-west, the 24 stops at Ironwood. There's the environmental impact statement stops at Ironwood. So there's a couple options for taking it east over to what's a north-south corridor. If you follow that, that's going to go from Eloy up to Mountain View. So the 24 would eventually connect into what's called the north-south corridor, which is supposed to be, I don't know, a 303 or a 505 or I don't know what.
909 or any number of those.
One after 909. It is.
One of my favorites.
8:15. So,
okay.
to answer more questions, we normally do this fun tabletop exercise. I think that's our slides, Rudy. I'm not sure if there was anything else. I kind of led you to this, our mapping services. I kind of did that. Then we do this real life scenario that is kind of the fun part, but it ends up taking another 45 minutes. And with COVID, we kind of skipped it last year and the year before, but Rudy is going to describe, because Al, you kind of say this is the most entertaining, fun thing of a whole 8 weeks, right? Typically? Because we get people kind of animated. We have a scenario where some people are the plan commissioners, some people are the neighbors, some people are the developers, and some people are the staff. So why don't you describe it? We'll throw it up on the overhead and just describe it to you, and we'll give you the handouts. But in the past, it's kind of just been fun. Kind of gets you a taste of what it's like to be a plan commissioner or a neighbor, or maybe you have been a neighbor and shown up against a rezoning or something.
Yeah. And I understand that going to a P&Z meeting and a city council meeting is part of the process. And Larry, our next P&Z meeting is the second Tuesday in February, I think.
Do
We may have an item.
We have a CUP item, I think, maybe?
I'm not sure, but a couple of folks were interested in knowing when our next P&Z meeting. We haven't had a couple of the last couple of times because right now we've got a lot of projects in the queue, but not projects scheduled yet. So keep an eye out on our website for when the next item will be before the Planning and Zoning Commission. But basically, the scenario was, like Larry said, we divide the group into 4 different groups, and the case is a halfway house for recently released or formerly recently incarcerated persons. A new halfway house moving into a neighborhood. You got a commercial on one side of the property. You got single-family residential on the other side of the property. There's a school, an elementary school down the block. I mean, this is a typical case where the passions of the neighborhood and folks showing up to public hearings would typically happen. And we give everybody a scenario. And the folks who get to be the commissioners get a little cheat sheet, and the neighbors get a little cheat sheet, and the developers get a little cheat sheet, and the planners get a cheat sheet, and so everybody gets to role play, and it becomes fun, and people get really creative, especially the developers in the neighborhoods
the neighborhood residents. But show up at our next P&Z hearing and you will see that in action. Go to a city council meeting on a night when there's some controversial item and you will see that in action. We had, Larry mentioned one of the new townhome developments that is at the corner of Ironwood and Superstition. That was a 2-story townhome project. A little bit of commercial around that corner, but mostly some medium density to lower density residential around there. A lot of folks came out to talk, express their opinions about that project because it was going to be 2 stories. Well, we hear in Apache Junction a lot, particularly when it's a multifamily proposal, even if it's going to be an ownership unit, is people have concerns about their property values. People have concerns about blocking the views to the mountain. You know, the mountain in AJ is sacred. Everybody wants to protect the views to the mountains. Other issues that come up is congestion. Everybody's concerned about traffic flow. You know, how many more cars is this going to add to my neighborhood? Is it going to make me late for work? Is there going to be more accidents? Those are the types of issues that typically come up, not just with a multifamily development, but a lot of times, you know, a 200 or 300 lot neighborhood will also bring out those types of concerns. And those are typically the issues that you see played out at city council meetings. So anyway, the point of the exercise was to try to get people familiar with that, involved with that, you know, and stir up some fun, stir up some interesting comments and people's ideas and stuff like that. I don't know. Once again, what we're seeing here is there's a little site plan that was generated which has some design flaws in it, and that's what the staff would look at. You know, it's an intersection. You've got you've got yeah. Oh.
You got to come around, Rudy.
Yeah, okay. So this is a corner property. North is usually that way. You've got a neighborhood street here. You've got a street here, which is kind of separating this development from commercial development that's happening to the east. And then we've got some residential to the north and to the west. And then we've got another multifamily development to the south. Developer proposing 3 buildings. A couple of them are 2 stories. One is 1 story. You know, how many residents are you going to house in this halfway home? How many staff are going to be there? Are they going to be allowed to come and go? And there's various reasons why the developer will try to convince you that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, trying to integrate the people back in the community that are close to their families. You know, we've got vans to take them to work and all that kind of stuff. You know, how can you make a land use of this type more or less fit in seamlessly with the neighborhood? Well, can you make it fit in seamlessly? That's, you know, part of the fun of the exercise. And we also include kind of another site plan that kind of gives you a better idea of what's going on in the neighborhood in general. Once again, this is a street that's separating the residential areas from the commercial areas. So how convenient is this? They can go across the street, they can shop, they can eat, they can, you know, have services close to their homes. There's already multifamily next door, so it's not that much more intense. You've got single family to the north and to the west. Oh yeah, there's an elementary school down the street, but hey, these are low-level offenders. They're not going to bother anybody. They've made some mistakes. They want to, you know. So anyway, that's kind of what we try to incorporate into our role-playing process and just let folks have fun with it. But like I said, you don't need an exercise to see this play out in real life when we've got an interesting item in front of the commission. So just kind of an overview of it, and once
It was
again,
fun. We're telling you, we really had a lot of fun doing this. That's why we come.
right.
But one of the other things, this is actually not going to be too far from the truth, Rudy, over on, is it Palo Verde or? So we have a facility in town that used to be a county jail, right?
Yes.
And then it was a facility for
the seriously mentally ill.
serious mentally ill.
Yes.
Then it became owned by Horizon Health. They were trying to always do something with. There was a proposal to maybe temporarily put some homeless folks over there.
Right.
Now, It's over on, is it Palo Verde?
No, it's on
on
Ocotillo,
Ocotillo.
just north of Apache Trail.
Acatia, yeah.
Yeah, Ocotillo and
I was off of
Apache
block.
Trail. It used to be the county building. A long time ago, it was the sheriff's office. And folks who haul water to the hinterlands north and east of here, that's where they go fill up their, huge water tanks. Yeah, yeah. So those folks are in the process and still deciding.
We don't know
whether or
how
not
the
to go
neighbors
forward.
are gonna go, and,
Yeah.
and they're, no.
No.
This is north of Apache Trail, on the west side of the street. Yeah, and so there was, is it by Empowerment Systems? A little north of there,
Yeah, a
yes.
little bit north of there, yeah.
And so there's, I think, a new group that wants to come in, and I think it's typically not an issue, they're gonna use the same buildings, right? But this group wants to come in and put in, is it a 3-story, 4-story?
Yes, it's a multi-story building.
Yeah, so again, we don't know how the neighbors are gonna, so
Right.
sometimes it's the use that they might object to, or it's just what it looks like, or the height of it, so there's a variety of, we don't know how that's gonna come out yet, but that's probably gonna be a real life case of this.
Yeah.
But then someone's gonna argue, well, it used to be a facility for severely mentally, so I think it is supposed to be for a alcohol treatment center.
Yes, it's a
And
rehab.
so, well, it was a jail at one time, and so it was, what's the difference between a jail and a facility for severely mentally ill versus folks with AODA, alcohol drug addiction issues?
And that property has been zoned for that use for 25 years or more, but folks don't know. It's been kind of minimally used or not used for a long time, and now this new proposal is going to be presented to the community because they want to go with taller buildings. They want to go with a lesser parking standard because these folks don't drive. We don't need 50 parking spaces because, those types of reasons. So the building itself, at least the preliminary plans we've seen, look very nice. But the use, is this a land use that folks are going to get excited about in a little bit north of the commercial areas in what's largely perceived as a single-family residential area? So that scenario will play out in real life here pretty soon.
And I think too, when we add 2,000 housing units up here, Rudy's been here quite a while and saw a lot of growth in the late 90s, early 2000s, up through the recession, and then all these vacant parcels have been nothing happening since 2000 or since the city was a city. Well, everything's kind of filled in now, I think, between the 202 and here, and you still see a lot of construction. Land prices were still fairly cheap out here compared to Mesa prices, and so now we've seen a lot of infill. So I think when you do infill, it's the hardest type of development to do because people are here and they don't want to see any growth or development once they're here. So we had a gentleman call this last couple of weeks a couple times. He's thinking about buying a house in a new subdivision and is concerned about a property that's been zoned commercial for 30 years next to the freeway and doesn't want to, so the house that they're buying, the next lot is this other lot that wasn't purchased for development. And now they're like, well, I don't know if I want to go through with my house purchase because there's going to be a Circle K behind me. Legitimate concern, and people, I think they thought that land was going to stay vacant forever. So it's just land is going to be developed in town, and there's not a lot. Again, we want to be careful about it. We want to make it look good. We want to see that it's as compatible as we can. The one development that was a little bit, it actually got a referral for 30 or 60 days. They're putting in a horse path. They're putting in a crossing over here on Superstition to accommodate the neighborhood to the east, which is virtually all horse-type property. So again, that developer, we didn't agree with it, but the developer decided we're not going to have any two-story. Out of 166 units, there were 16 that happened to be two-story. And so we have a lot of two-story. Our current zoning code allows 35 feet for a single-family home.
Yep.
And so we thought, well, if it's technically in the downtown area, the middle units could at least be two-story. But anyway, the developer said, hey, we want to get our project approved, so we'll just get rid of all the two-story, and they did. So I think it is going to be, the cases will get more interesting as the city infills because it's just a tougher thing for developers to do. So it's not just going to be a halfway house, it's going to be we had one that galvanized a lot of people, a 4-story building that was going to go in right by the roundabout, And the developers, we think, were just flippers, and so we told them, we don't think it's gonna work, but they insisted on 4 stories, and it blew up.
Yeah, that one didn't get past P and Z. People who don't live anywhere near the site showed up to protest that one. I mean, folks from Meridian were showing up to protest something that's going on down here down the street. So like I said, you never know what issue is going to bring out the passions of the community, but the blocking of the mountains seems to be one of the biggies. You know, AJ's a certain character. We don't want to be Scottsdale. We don't want to be Tempe. We want to keep AJ, and it's a legitimate concern. It's kind of a tension between perhaps some of our older residents, some of our newer residents who would like to see the nicer restaurants and the shopping and those types of things. It's like I said, it's a very interesting time in Apache Junction.
You had a question?
What do they want to make that 3-story building into? Halfway house or what?
No, there's not one there today. So right now, there's 2 buildings, and they want to retrofit those buildings and add a 3rd building. But that 3rd building eats up a lot of where used to be parking, and then stormwater is a big issue in that particular neighborhood. So it was a new building. They're talking about adding to the site.
For big apartments or?
No,
It's a alcohol rehab center. Yeah.
alcohol rehab center.
Yep.
Oh, so not a homeless shelter.
No, that was a proposed use at one time, and then kind of went away. The stars didn't align, and it didn't happen. But
That was the paramedic department back before Superstation Fire, the DMV, and then they had a fire truck there, and paramedics and EMTs worked right out there. And then later it was that mentally ill, and then, I don't know what it is now.
it's just been vacant for at least a decade, I
I
think.
think Horizon Health still owns it, but
Or now they're trying to sell it, so
nobody's using it at
yeah.
this
Could use it for something, huh?
Well,
Yeah,
that's what's doing.
that's what they're doing. I think that kind of
Okay.
covers the material we were going to cover tonight. We're, again, happy to answer any more questions or thoughts, observations, whatever. If anybody wants to keep those 3 general plans, you're welcome. Whoever ended up with them, you can have them. They're online. It is on the website if you want to kind of get into more detail. And some late night reading if you want. I only brought 3 tonight.
Very good reading. Okay.
I think we have at the
Rudy
library.
and Larry Kirch, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys are the lucky ones. You got to see Larry do his swan song. There you go.
Al, I think.
I'm telling you. Please come up and get a printout from the last class, and we have that. Don't forget, 2 weeks from now, we get back together, but not here. Where are we going to be? Everybody remember? We're going to be at the high school. We're going to be at Apache Junction High School's Performing Arts Center. That is over on the corner of Southern and Ironwood. And we'll be there for the State of the City event, and all of you are welcome to join us there. We'll start about 6:30, and then the event starts at 7. We'll have a little bit of refreshments at 6:30. All right? What's that? Yeah, there was only 3.
We didn't produce all that many. It is available online. Yeah, you can check it out at the library. You know, I can try to bring a couple more. Yeah, just bring it home, bring it back to the next meeting if you want, you know. Yeah, take it home, bring it back.
All right, everybody have a very good night, and please drive home safely.